What's going on, party people? Welcome to another episode of Hanging Out with Nolan Hong. And hanging out with us today in the studio is Skyler Kamaka. She is the 2012 Miss Hawaii and now a newly minted full-on, full-fledged pilot for the Hawaii Air National Guard. And she's also born into the famous Kamaka ukulele family. She's had quite a life. So we talk about all the adventures in what goes into pilot school and training and what kind of pilot she specifically is. Also talk about the whole pageant world and her experience as Miss Hawaii and how she even came about with the decision to enter. And we just have a great time catching up. Skyler and I met on the set of an Island Insurance commercial with our good buddy Marcus Mariota, and been friends ever since. So it's really cool to have her back here in Hawaii and for her to share her story with us. Jamie, unfortunately, is not in this episode. She had a prior engagement to be at, so you won't hear her familiar laugh, but Dr. Emmett Bean was here with us, so that's all right. We got 2 out of the 3 of the dream team on this one, and Skyler and her amazing personality more than make up for Jamie's absence. So without further ado, here's my friend Skyler Kamaka. Yeah, because the last time we saw each other was almost like 3 years ago, almost, when we were doing the radio show with Devin in the morning. And it was funny because just maybe a month prior, we actually met just doing the commercial, right, for Island Insurance with our good buddy Marcus Mario.
With our good friend,
Yeah. No, but it's such a small world that, like, you know, we meet there, and then, you know, a few weeks later, it just happened that Devin's like, hey, come in for fill in on the radio show, and there you're there. I was like, hey, old friend.
We go way back.
Yeah. But when we did that, which was the last time I saw you, you had just got accepted into the academy. Is that right? Was that the time?
I'm trying to remember. It's all a blur. I mean, it was, I think so. So I got accepted it was 2015. It was like maybe like July-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I swore in November, and then I kind of just sat around for like a little over a year before like I actually started doing stuff. It's like, okay, so you're in.
Yeah. And
we'll let you know when we're going to send you to school. So like I really had no timeline. So I went like over a year just like doing the same thing, just kind of like waiting. Oh, wow. So I think when we met, it was during that time. It was like in 2016 where I was still...
I know it was summertime because that was when the Olympics are going on.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was 2016, right?
Yeah.
I can't keep track.
So is that normal that they would, like, because usually when I think, like if you apply to a college, right? It's like, okay, next semester you're in, right?
Yeah.
But is it normal that they just kind of have you waiting and you have no idea? Because how long does it typically take from when they accept you to, and why does it take so long?
I think for pilots, it does take a long time just because, like, the way that they do their training, you have to go to, you have to, like, do your physical first, and so they have to schedule that, and then you have to go to officer training, so they have to find a school date that works for you, because, I mean, obviously, it's just, like, a well-oiled machine, right?
Yeah.
And if there's space, then they fill you into those slots, and then that's your school time, and you go, and they try to condense it so that you can hit all of your schooling in one big chunk instead of like going to officer school and then waiting 6 months and then going to your next school and then waiting 5 months or something like that. So they just make you wait a big chunk on the front end and try to stack all your school dates together, and then they send you. So
since you didn't know, like, since you didn't know when you would start, like, what were you doing with your time then? Because it's hard to start like a career knowing that you don't know what.
Well, so I was doing high sessions and dancing hula at Halekulani.
Right. Yeah.
So that was my regular job, right? Those are regular. And I would just like book out as like a couple months in advance. So if people were like, hey, can you do this? Or do you want to like do this job in Japan and, you know, travel and do all these different gigs, commercials, things like that. And I'm like, okay, when? Okay, how far in advance? Okay, just letting you know I might have to go. Like, but yeah, I'll pencil you in for now, and I'll let you know if things change. So I kind of just planned like a couple months in advance, be like, okay, I'm still here, so hopefully they let me know. And yeah, I think when they did let me know my school dates, it was probably about 2 months in advance that I found out. It's like, okay, so you're going in January. I'm like, oh, all right. So I could kind of like get it together a little bit, but
because for a while I was seeing you in everything.
Yeah, I was all over the place.
Yeah.
And then I disappeared.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And for those who didn't know, they'd be like, what happened to her?
She just fell off the face of the earth. There's a different girl doing high sessions. Like, what? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it was very, well, when I went to like officer training, I mean, they just kind of like throw you in there, and it's very, I don't want to say sequestered, but like no phones allowed kind of thing. And you're like waking up at 4 a.m., going to sleep at like 11 p.m. So there's really like no time in between to do anything. You know, no social media, no nothing. You're like focused on your job, which is to learn how to become an officer, pretty much.
And how, what was that difficult for you? I mean, to me, if I had that kind of a huge transition of like when you say no phones, like the other day I left my phone in the car for like an hour, and I was like, what do I do with my life?
What do I do with my hands?
Was it hard?
It was at first, but then you kind of like, it's kind of nice to unplug and not have to like worry about, you know, or just be constantly tied to your phone all the time. Like, it's nice to unplug and be like, oh, I can survive without my phone for like a whole day and I'll be all right. Like, the world's still going to turn. Things are still going to happen, and I don't need to know instantly. Like, I think we're just so caught up in this instant gratification. Like, I need to know now. Like, what is everybody doing? What am I doing? Can everybody see what I'm doing? Like, and yeah, so it was nice. And then, so officer training was like 3 months. And so, of course, they like lock you down in the beginning. It's like, no phones. And then as it goes on, they're like, okay, now you can use your phones. Like, okay, you know, whatever. But some people, they like lost it when they took away our phones. They're like crying. They're like, oh, you know, they have to be dramatic, right? And so they're like, oh, I'll give you one last phone call to call home. You can call right now and you have 5 minutes. And there were like fully grown men that were like crying on FaceTime because they weren't going to be able to talk to their girlfriend or their wives or whatever. And they're like, ah, and I'm just like, well, I don't really need to call anybody. Like, my mom knows I'm good. My boyfriend, I told him, I was like, hey, I'm not going to have my phone. He was prepped. So I was like, I'm good. And these guys are like bawling. I'm like, you guys need to calm down. It's not that serious.
Did that make you kind of freak out? Like, because if I saw that like all around me, I'm like, what did I sign up for? Like, I thought these people would be like me, like all cool, but
yeah, no, I mean, some were you're just like, geez, are you gonna be okay? Can you handle this? But no, it was fine.
Did any of them turn out to be like your good friend afterwards?
Yes.
Did you still give them?
I keep in touch with a lot of people from. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but I keep in touch with the people who are in my little group or whatever. And yeah, we like just keep in touch on Facebook and everything. And it's kind of cool to see where everybody ended up, because we all started in officer training, and then we had all different jobs. So some are like pilots, some are, you know, missileers. So they like control the launching of the missiles if that ever were to happen, you know. Some were contractors, and just all of the jobs that require officers. So we're all together, and that was pretty cool, because you never get to meet those people, because once you go down your path, you only meet the pilots and the this and the that, and people who are associated with your job. So it was really cool to like keep in touch with them and see what they're doing now, like 2 years down the road. It's like, oh wow, you're doing it, like, yay you. I remember when we didn't know anything. We were just like, we're gonna march? What? How do I do this? But I told a lot of people that doing the officer training and like learning how to march and do all these things, it was just like hula. So like all of the trainers so they're called MTIs, and they're like the military training instructors, and they teach you like, okay, so you're going to step like this far, and you're going to like stick your arm out just like 12 inches and you have to keep, everybody needs to look the same and be in sync. And I'm like, oh, this is just like dancing hula. Okay. And then they yell at you, you know, if you're not on the right foot and doing all. I was like, this is just like my kumus, and these are my hula brothers and sisters, and we're just dancing. It's just a little more stiff. This is fine. So I actually had no problem with like the marching and doing all these things and doing all the turns. I was like, this is fun. I could do this all day.
And what is the purpose of that? Because like if I, as a person who's not involved, I'm like, oh, you're going to the Air Force to be a pilot. Why would you need to know how to like do all these synchronized marches and stuff? Well,
so one is to teach you discipline, right? So that's like the big thing, is to teach you to be disciplined and teach you to pay attention to details and things like that. Is the main, that's really what they're trying to drive home, is pay attention to the details. But then also like when you form up, we do like formal ceremonies and things like that. So we had like a little parade thing for our graduation where there's tons of us. There's like over 100 students. I can't even remember how many were in my officer training class, but there's tons of us. So we have to like do this little parade thing. We have to like march out and do the dance, right? In my mind, it's doing the dance, but it was doing the marching, and they've got, you know, the drums going, and we're just like marching around. And I'm just thinking hula all day, and I'm like, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1.
So when you said you had to like in the beginning is like wake up at 4, come back at 11. What are you doing all day? Like, what was a typical day like?
God, it's all a blur. Like once that was done, it's kind of like a blob, and you just kind of forget about it.
Was it a lot of like physical training kind of stuff or classes?
So we did, it's kind of everything. So in the morning we would do like PT. So we'd go out to the track. That was like bright and early at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's freezing cold. Because I went in January,
And this is where? Was this in Mobile?
I was in Alabama, but I was in, God, what was it? Maxwell was the Air Force base,
So my mom, she was in the Air Force as a dietitian, and she was stationed at Maxwell.
Yeah.
So she always talked about that.
Yeah, we were in Maxwell, and from January to March. So, I mean, it's the South, but still.
Yeah,
like, there were periods where it was really cold, and I was like shivering. That was my first like introduction to living in the South, because then I eventually went to Mississippi for pilot training.
Wow.
So I was in the South for a while.
Before that, had you had much experience like living on the mainland, like not the South, but just in general on the mainland?
Yeah, so I went to college in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay.
So I played volleyball there, so that was my living on the mainland, but that was West Coast.
Yeah.
And being in the South is totally different. And that was the first time that I was really introduced to like the South and Southern hospitality and the culture and the way that they talk, like their accents and everything. And at first I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what these people are saying. And I felt so bad, because I'm usually really good with accents, because we have so many people here, you know, Filipino accent, Japanese accent, Korean, like you can just pick it out and you pick it up. But in the South, it's totally different. And I would feel so bad, because I'm like, sorry, can you say that again? Like, one more time. Sorry, what did you say? And I'm like, oh, man. But then after pilot training, I was there for a year and a half. Like, they would just be talking to me, and I could totally understand them. People were like, wow, you can speak like Creole? And I was like, no, but I know what they're saying now. It's just like Filipino accents. And my family, my step family is Filipino, so.
Oh, okay.
I grew up with like all of the accents in my family. Yeah.
Did you kind of pick up a twang did you notice, or did your friends or family say, hey, you kind of picked up some of this Southern accent?
Yeah, while I was in the South, everybody just speaks really slow. Like they move slow, they speak slow. So like I caught myself like just kind of mellowing out, because I mean in Hawaii we're pretty lax and we move slow, so that wasn't a big thing. But like when we talk and we get excited, like we're just like
using your hands.
Exactly. If you can see me right now, I'm like hands here. But we get super portuguese and we just start talking really fast. And so in the South, everybody's like, and honey, how are you? And how's your day? Oh, bless your heart. And I'm like, oh no. So you just like pick up their sayings, and So I definitely picked up some of the Southern sayings and their slangs and whatnot. But you know, it's just like anything. As soon as I came back to Hawaii, it was like Tillamook actions back on. We're good to go. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Because I went to college in South Carolina, and one thing there is that I don't know if it's just there or if this is a Southern thing, but they wouldn't call you by your first name. They called you by your last name all the time. So I was in Nolan. I was, hey, Hong.
Oh,
fixing to go eat.
Yeah, fixing to go eat.
Did they call you Skyler? Or did they?
It was Miss Sky. Hey, Miss Sky.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a very Southern name. You probably fit in real nice.
Yep. So it's, hey, Miss Sky. I'm, hey, girl, how are you? Yeah. So everybody just talks real soft or like real slow, and yeah. It was fun.
Did you like that?
I really liked living in the South. I was in Mississippi. I mean, I wouldn't say like, oh, I'm going to move there or anything, but it wasn't like terrible. You know, obviously it was a culture shock, just being in the South. It's definitely different than Hawaii. But I mean, the people that I met were all great.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, we were in I wouldn't say very small, but we were in a small town, Columbus, Mississippi, and it's like just one little highway coming through, and you've got like all your strip malls and your fast food places, and then you blink and it's done. It's like, there it went, there goes Columbus. But I mean, I was so busy. I was flying Monday through Friday, and then it's like you just have the weekends off, and you just really don't want to do anything except recover, have a bunch of beers. I lie. You want to drink with the boys, and just forget all of the training that you did for a week, and then on Sunday you like recover and you get your life back together. And that was pretty much my lifestyle for the last year and a half. And I was the only girl in my class, so when I say drink with the boys, it was really drink with the boys. Yeah,
because every picture I would see, it'd be you and a bunch of boys, and I was like, so was that comfortable for you, or was it difficult being the only girl in there?
I don't think it was difficult at all, actually. I think probably because I'm such like the alpha female type.
Yeah.
And I played sports, and I was a tomboy growing up, so like I always had a bunch of guy friends. I was always into sports. I love football, and like I can talk football with everybody, and so it kind of I was like taken off guard a little bit because not everybody like talk football, because they're a bunch of pilot nerds. So you're just a bunch of nerds that like flying airplanes, and that's what I realized. And like there would be a few of us who were like super into football, but not everybody was into it. And I'm like, you don't like football? What's wrong with you? And we're in the South, like we're an hour away from Tuscaloosa. So that's like Alabama Roll Tide, right? So I was all about it because we were, you know, SEC football, and we could like go to all these games, and Mississippi State was right there. So I loved that. But yeah, no, I got really lucky. All of the guys in my class were amazing. Like they didn't treat me differently or like treat me like I was a girl or like disregard me. Because I don't think everybody had the same experience as me, as all the girls anyway. But in my class specifically, I had like the best group of guys. Loved them. I was definitely their mom too, because I was older than all of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So all of the guys who came out of the academy, they were like fresh out of college. So they were like 21, 22. And then me, and there was one other Hawaii boy, Devin Ferguson. We're kind of older, like we did the college thing, then we kind of had our own little lives going on for a little while, and then we decided to go into the Guards. So it was like a range of people who were 21, 22-ish to like, I think we had 2 people that were like just turned 30. So that was kind of the range. So we were on the older scale. We were more of the parents of the group. Well, I was anyway. I was the mom. And I just, you know, coordinate the birthdays and bring the cakes for everybody and did the Secret Santa. Like, that was my job.
Oh, they lucked out there.
They really did.
Because if you weren't there, it would have been so boring.
I totally spoiled them. I, like, made sure we did get-togethers. We did barbecues and whatnot. So, yeah.
So you said there's another Hawaii guy with you. Did you know him before joining? Or?
No, so he went to Punahou.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. You know, he went to Punahou. I went to Kamehameha. Obviously, there was going to be a little bit of, you know, tension, but I accepted him. I brought him under my wing.
Bless your heart.
Yes, thank you. taught him the ways. No. So Devin and I had mutual friends, but we never met until getting selected for the Guard. And then we have done everything together. So we've pretty much been attached at the hip for the last 3 years.
So you're saying the Guard, what is that? What is that in reference to?
So that is the Hawaii Air National Guard here.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So we both got selected, and the way that it works is there's active duty and then there's the Guard route, right? So active duty, it's like you enlist and they own you, and you do your commitment and you do whatever job they assign you. And so the way that Devin and I got selected is we submitted our application to join the Guard, and we wanted a pilot slot. So we had to interview and do all of these things, and go down to the squadron and meet everybody and kind of, rub elbows and see if they like us, if we like them, if this is going to be a good fit. And thankfully on that board, they selected 2 pilots, and it was Devin and I.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very competitive. There's about 50 people that applied for our board, and from all across the U.S. too.
And so as far as the function of your department or the Guard, what is the goal or the focus of what you're trying to get into?
So Devin and I are both flying the 135. That's a refueling aircraft, and to kind of explain that, it's the same size as like an airlines, like an airliner, and we refuel other aircraft in the air.
So that's really cool, because when I was a little kid, we used to play this game. I think it's like Top Gun. It's a video game. And if you got past the first level, then the next level is you have to try and get your plane to line up with this refueling plane.
Yeah,
and there's like a little pole that sticks into it and
that
fuels
is
it.
my plane.
So what I always wanted to know is like, why couldn't planes just like, because all I know is airlines. You fly from point A to point B, and that's where you refuel. So why is there a need to have planes refuel up in the air? And then on top of that, it's such a strange concept to me that there's this plane that is huge and has to carry all this fuel. And the first thing I hear of when planes need to, like, they say, oh, we got to burn the fuel so that we can land because we're too heavy and stuff. It's like, how does it's just a very foreign concept to me.
Yeah.
So how does it all work?
I know, it's pretty crazy, but you think about it, Hawaii is the most isolated place in the world. You have to fly either 5 hours this way and you're going to hit LA and the West Coast, or you're going to fly like 8 hours to Japan. And different aircrafts have different size tanks, and especially fighters. Like, fighters can't make it across. We call it the pond. Fighters can't make it across the pond without getting refueled, like at least midway. So we have to like take them, pretty much.
So do you go from the same spot that they took off from, or you come from the destination and meet them halfway?
It depends. Sometimes we take off the same spot. Sometimes we will meet them someplace, like, and we'll give them their gas, and then they can continue on to where they're going, and we go where we need to go. So our plane is pretty much a big gas station. So when you're in the, I guess the cockpit, is it roomier than, because the only cockpit I've seen for a plane that size is like, airlines, and it looks pretty cramped in there. Is it kind of similar? It's similar, but it's not as small as the airlines, because obviously the purpose of airlines is to fit more passengers. So they're like, close the doors off, like, all right, pilots, you can fit. Okay, you can recline. That's all you're going to get. But yeah, in the 135, you have a little bit more space, and the flight deck is a lot bigger. So,
do you have like a common area like to hang out, or is it just like you're sitting in your seat and for the whole flight and that's it? Like, is there like place to eat or? Yeah,
we have like a little galley. We got a little microwave, and so it sucks for the fighters because they have no bathroom. Yeah. We have a bathroom. And we have a little microwave. We can bring our food and warm it up. And we have a little coffee pot. Like, we're living the good life. The fighters think they've got the good. They're so cool. But I'm like, can you use the bathroom?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
What do they do? Like, do they have a thing in their suit to go in?
They either have to just hold it, Or it's called a piddle pack.
Uh-huh.
I'll just let you figure out how that works.
Man, because... Okay.
Sucks for girls. Let's just say there's like girls...
Right.
There's nothing. But for guys, you have a piddle pack.
Because... So for like say a trip from Hawaii to LA, that's you said about 5 hours if you're taking an airline, right? So for a fighter pilot or a fighter jet, it's faster. How long does it take usually for?
I don't know how long it takes the fighters, but then again, the faster you go, the faster you burn your gas.
Right.
So you have to go up like higher to be more fuel efficient, but then you also need a refuel. So I really don't know. I haven't done that yet, but. Yeah. Well,
for your aircraft, is it slower or faster or same speed as, like, say, an airline aircraft?
I don't know all the speeds for the airlines, so I can't really compare, but my jet is pretty fast. Like, it's the fastest heavy aircraft, I should say.
Wow.
Like, of all the military aircraft, it's the fastest.
So, on average, like, how long are you usually in the air for like, your
It all
assignments?
depends. Sometimes, like, it can be a quick trip, just like a couple hours for training, or if we're not refueling, like we could just fly all day.
Really?
Yeah, like some trips I've heard it being like 16 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and you're flying from like Hawaii to like Germany, or you're flying on the other side of the world pretty much. So yeah, it all depends.
So is this what you've always wanted to do? Like, this is a very specific career.
Mm-hmm. It is. And if you had asked me, like, I signed in 2015. If you had asked me even like a year or two before that, if I'd ever think that I would be in the military, I would have told you you're crazy.
So what happened? How did this happen?
Well, I've always wanted to be a pilot.
Okay.
So I grew up, my mom was a flight attendant for Delta. 2 of my uncles are pilots for Hawaiian. My cousin is now a pilot for Hawaiian. So I grew up in the airlines, and I always knew I wanted flight benefits for the rest of my life. So I have flight benefits on Delta, obviously, and I was like, I cannot imagine ever paying full price for a ticket.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be in the airlines, and I knew I wanted to fly, but I never really believed that I could be a pilot, like actually like take the steps and do it. I'm like, yeah, I want to be a pilot. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Astronaut. I'm like, yeah, pilot. And I tell people this all the time, that if it wasn't for Miss Hawaii, I wouldn't be in the Air Force and I wouldn't be a pilot.
That's
today.
so interesting, because most people would not see a correlation between the two,
not
right?
at all. And I remember when I was competing for Miss Hawaii, there was like a little bio in the program book, and it's like, oh, your career ambitions or whatever. And I had wrote that I want to be a pilot, and people were like, what? Like, you want to be a pilot? That has nothing to do with like your degree you got. 'Cause I got my degree in exercise and sports science with a minor in coaching. And my plan was to get my master's in education so that I could teach and coach volleyball at the collegiate level. So I went to school on a volleyball scholarship, played volleyball all my life. Again, tomboy.
Yeah.
My whole life, sports, doing that. So I was good at that. So I thought that was the path that I was going to go, because everybody told me like, oh, you'd be such a great teacher. You're great with kids, and you could do sports. You could coach and teach. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I was in college. I was really going to college only so I could play volleyball. Yeah. And I just needed to get a major along the way. So I picked exercise and sports science because that's what I'm good at. So
were you
let
a
me
good
learn.
student?
I wasn't like a 4.0 or anything like that, but I had like a 3.5. Like I was decent.
Yeah.
I bounced between the 3.2 to 3.5 range, but I wasn't like a 4.0 student. I wasn't super brainiac or anything like that, but I did okay.
Yeah.
I did all right. Yeah. That's okay. Every once in a while I got like, oh, I got a little award for being, 3.5 and above. I was like, yeah. But that was about it. Never did I ever see 4.0. But
that makes 2 of us. Yeah. But I was like on the other side of the 3s. I was more like under the 3.0.
Yeah. It's okay. It's all right. But yeah, so I thought that was the route I wanted to do, and that kind of led me into Miss Hawaii, because I finished my degree, or I was coming up on my senior year. I wanted to get my master's, and I had no way to pay for it because I went to school on my scholarship. And I was like, okay, well, how am I going to pay for this? And then that's kind of when this Miss Hawaii thing came about. They're like, oh, Miss Hawaii gives scholarship. You should look into that. And I was like, never thought about that, but okay. And that was, again, another instance where I told people, hey, I'm going to run for Miss Hawaii. And they're like, you're going to do what? You're going to run for Miss... You play volleyball, you wear sweats, you don't wear makeup, and you're going to run for Miss Hawaii. I was like, yeah, I am.
Who is the one that gave you that idea?
I actually met Lauren Cheap. She's now Lauren Matsumoto. But she was the current Miss Hawaii at the time, and we were both volunteering at this sports day event in Waikiki. I can't remember what the name of it was. But yeah, so I was just volunteering there doing like my community service because I needed hours to keep my scholarship and do all these things, right? So I met Lauren. That was the first time I ever met at Miss Hawaii. And
she was already reigning Miss Hawaii.
Yeah, she was reigning Miss Hawaii. And so I was like, this is what she does. Like, she goes to these events, and this is cool. Like, so then I got the opportunity to meet her, and then we kind of just started talking, and we ended up talking like the entire event. I started like following her around, taking her pictures for her. You know, she does jump rope, so she's doing her jump rope thing, and I'm like, go Lauren, taking pictures of her. And then as the day went on, she's like, you should really think about running for Miss Hawaii because I think you would be great. And I was like, me? Really? And she's like, yeah, you'd be such a great Miss Hawaii. And I was like, okay. Yeah, thanks. But I'll think about that. And she was the person who kind of like put the bug in my ear. And then I started to think about it. And I started to research the program and everything. And I was like, I think I could do this Miss Hawaii thing. Yeah, I think I could do it. And yeah, so I competed that year. I had to compete for a local title. I didn't tell anybody that I was going to compete. Yeah, because I'm very competitive, and so I was stepping into like a whole new world, right? I went from like volleyball world to pageant world.
Yeah.
And I had to I'm the kind of person I will keep things very private and like work hard at it, and then last minute, I'll be like, oh, hey, by the way, next weekend I'm running for Miss Diamond Head. And people are like, what? Like, my family was like, wait, you're going to run for this pageant? Like, you want to run for Miss Hawaii? I was like, yeah. So if you guys want to come, you can come.
Because it's like, it's not just like you just show up and compete. Like, it's how many, several months, right?
You definitely have to prepare and do all of, get all of your outfits ready. So you have your interview, your swimsuit, your evening gown. So you have to try on all these things. Then there's the interview portion, which is the most important. It's a 10-minute interview that nobody sees on top of that. That's held a totally different day. And it's an interview with the judges, and it's kind of like a press conference. So if you don't know how to handle questions in press conference setting where people are just firing at you, and sometimes the judges will be nice and they'll ask you questions one at a time, and sometimes they'll just be jumping over each other to ask you questions and see how you do under pressure. So you need to train yourself how to answer these questions and do all these things and speak eloquently and intelligently, but not talk too long because you only have 10 minutes and blah blah blah. It's a whole art form.
Yeah, because I dated a girl who was in the pageant system.
Yeah.
And she'd have to go to classes or group get-togethers and practice interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I was doing all of that from Oregon.
Oh.
Because I was a senior at the time.
Oh,
and
still there.
Yeah, so I was a senior, but I still had Hawaii residence because obviously I was back and forth and I was just there temporarily for school. I never claimed Oregon residency, so I could compete in Hawaii or in Oregon if I wanted to. But I was like, no, I'm definitely competing for Miss Hawaii if I'm doing anything. So yeah, I was prepping and working out and doing all these crazy things and having mock interviews in Oregon as well. And then I came home and I did a couple right before the pageant. The pageant I think was in February or something. So it was the middle of the semester, leading up to my graduation. So I flew home, was home for a few days, competed and won my local title, Miss Diamond Head. And I was like, okay, I'll see you guys in a couple months. I got to go back to school now.
Was that your first?
That was my first pageant ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know you said you're super competitive, but going into it, was your goal and expectation to win Miss Hawaii the whole pageant, or just to, because some pageant people, they try to win a couple, and it's a several year process, right? Like they win a couple and they get used to it, and then eventually make it to become Miss Hawaii, right? So was that your plan, or were you like, no, I'm taking this whole thing, I'm taking the crown?
I was taking it to the house. Yeah. I was winning Miss America.
Wow.
Yeah. So backtrack, I'm totally all over the place. But yeah, when I met Lauren, I had actually gone to the Miss Hawaii pageant. I watched her win, and that was the first time I had ever gone to Miss Hawaii. And that's because somebody had invited me and just randomly like, hey, do you want to go to the pageant? I was like, okay, like I've never been to a Miss Hawaii pageant, so sure, why not? So like I went and I saw it, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like you get to talk and do all these things, and swimsuit is fun. Like it's, even though it's stressful, it's a lot of fun. And then you get to do your talent, and you have a platform. I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And then I met Lauren after she had won a few months later. And after meeting her and she kind of putting that bug in my ear, like, you should do this, I think you would be a Miss Hawaii. Like, she just telling me that, even though she could have told it to, like, 5 million people, like, I believed what she said. And I think she was very genuine when she said it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, thanks. And took that in, thought about it. And then when I committed to it in my brain, of course, I didn't tell anybody. I committed, like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I didn't tell anybody. I went and I watched Miss America that year, and that was in Vegas. So I flew to Vegas, watched the competition.
You went specifically to Vegas to watch? Wow.
Yep. You
are competitive.
I am competitive. If I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it balls to the wall, like all the way. So I went and I watched the preliminary nights, because it's 3 nights of preliminary competition, then there's a day off, and then there's the final night, which is what's televised. So you only see that little bit on TV. And I had watched the pageants on TV before, and, you know, just for fun, not really knowing what's going on besides what I see on TV. And yeah, so I went to Vegas, and I went every night, and I got, I had like the little visitor's badge so that I could go to like the meet and greet afterwards. So you do the pageant, and then, or you compete that night, and then the contestants come in the back, and it's pretty much family and then people of the organization that have access to come back there. You have to like buy a badge and all this. And so I had a friend who was involved with Lauren's year, so she got me a badge, and she's like, yeah, you can come back and you can kind of see what it's all about. So I got like the full experience of like what it was going to be like if I competed, if I won Miss Hawaii and went on to compete for Miss America. And I was watching, and I was like, I could do this.
So it wasn't intimidating at all?
No. I mean, obviously it's like, holy smokes, it's a whole new world that I didn't even know existed. And once you kind of tiptoe into the pageant world, you all of a sudden, you get like drawn in, you know everybody, and like everybody knows everybody. It's crazy. It's like its own little mini Hawaii. Like all the states know each other, and their directors know each other, and it's pretty wild. But yeah, so I went and I watched Miss America, and I was like, yeah, I could do this. And then I went and I competed for my local title.
Was it intimidating in the sense that if I would assume that since everybody knows each other, like how you mentioned, was it like intimidating in the sense of like, well, everyone already knows each other, who am I? Or is it more like, hey, everyone looks like they're very involved with each other and welcoming, that made you feel more comfortable?
I would say it was a little more of everybody knows each other, so they knew who to like watch out for, and I was coming out of left field, so I was very much the dark horse, like competing, because nobody knew who I was. I'd never done pageants before, and all people knew is I was this girl who went to school in Oregon. My family is the Kamaka ukulele family, and that's about it. And she dances hula. Like that was it. And I liked that, you know, because I like to come in and kind of just be unassuming. And so I thought that played to my strengths. And then, you know, come game time, right? Come game time, I was like, papa, turn it on, like, let's go, let's play. And that's just all it is. It's a competition, but it's really, you're competing with yourself to be the best version of yourself. And all of the girls that I competed with, I still keep in touch with them. And like, winning that year, I understood the responsibility of representing all the girls that I competed with. Like, it wasn't just myself. It wasn't just representing Hawaii, but I represented all those girls that I competed with. And like, I still keep in touch with them. I like want to know how they're doing in life and what they're doing. And I'm super proud of everybody and what they're doing and accomplishing, because they were like another extension of me, because they went out after I became Miss Hawaii and was moving on and doing Miss America. They continued to like work in their communities, and that was just another extension of the organization. So yeah.
So when it's
very, very family oriented and connected, and I loved it.
Yeah. And from what I got to see from outside, it did really feel like that. Like everybody always was in contact with each other and helping each other out. It wasn't as cutthroat as I expected it would be.
Not
that I assumed.
Yeah. So even when I went to, when I went to Miss America, like all of the girls there were awesome. Like there was nobody who was like cutting dresses and stealing shoes and like,
it wasn't like Miss Congeniality.
It honestly was totally like Miss Congeniality, in the sense that like we were all about the pizza and beer kind of scenario post pageant. Like, post pageant, we were about that lifestyle. But leading up to it, we're all eating our salad and doing the workouts and just being crazy. But yeah, I keep in touch with a lot of those girls too, and we did like a little mini reunion the following year in Atlantic City to watch our Miss America give up her title. And we just like keep in touch. We do Secret Santa, and we did I wasn't able to go because I was in pilot training, but we did like a 5-year reunion thing. So a bunch of the girls got together in Miami, and I just FaceTime because I was stuck in Mississippi. I was like, I wish I was there. They're like, just fly yourself over here. I'm like, I know, I totally could.
Just borrow the jet
I could totally do that. This is a real world possibility now. They're like, come on. But yeah. So it's pretty wild. But again, like I said, I wouldn't be in the military if it weren't for Miss Hawaii, because I never really believed that I could be a pilot until I won Miss Hawaii. Because once I won Miss Hawaii and I did the whole shebang for a year, I look back and I was like, damn, I could do whatever I want. Like, I just did this Miss Hawaii thing that nobody thought I was gonna do. Nobody thought I was gonna win. Nobody thought I'd be as successful as I was in my year. And like, I could totally just go be a pilot. I could do whatever I want. If I want to go be a teacher, I could go be a teacher, which I did. Did it for a year. Loved the kids. Probably not going to go back to teaching ever. But yeah, so I taught for a year and I was like, screw this. I'm going to go be a pilot. And I kind of just chucked my whole like path that I thought that I wanted to do and what kind of brought me to Miss Hawaii. And I wanted to give it a shot, doing the teaching bit. So after Miss Hawaii, I taught at St. Anne's, and I did like it, but it wasn't like my passion. That wasn't really what I wanted to do. I always wanted to fly, and I never gave it a shot yet. So I was like, let's go flying. Like, let's figure out how to make this work. And all of the connections that I made during Miss Hawaii and just the people that I came in contact with, I was, just kind of racking my brain, like, okay, who can I talk to? Like, who did I meet in my past year that could help me get to where I need to go? And just all of those connections were the most valuable thing that I could have ever like achieved from my 1 year.
So why did you choose the military route instead of going to fly for Hawaiian or something like that?
Well, I started doing my private license. So once I made the choice, I was like, all right, gotta find an instructor. We're going to start flying here and we'll see if this is really what I want to do. So I flew with my saint of an instructor, Wayne Blankenship, and he's the only man on planet Oahu that was brave enough to fly with me. I've never flown a plane before, and he's retired Hawaiian Airlines, retired Army Guard. So he's an older guy, and he was like, oh, you want to fly? My cousin referred him to me because he did his pilot training with him. And I was like, yeah, I do. And he's like, oh, I see you on TV. You did a high sessions thing, right? And I was like, yeah. And so he's like, okay, I'll take you flying. And bless his heart, he was brave enough to get in the airplane with me and take me flying. And I just absolutely fell in love with flying. And yeah, he taught me everything that I know. No, he taught me a lot. And I did my private pilot's license with him. And
what did he train you on? What kind of...
It was a little Cessna. So it was 172, like little tiny prop and little, it was a 4-seater, but really it could only hold 2 fully grown adults and maybe like a couple kids in the back. But yeah, so I was flying the Cessna, and flying is a very expensive hobby.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So I think when I was flying, it cost maybe, I want to say like $160, $150 an hour.
Oh my God. And that's just to cover like
that's just for the plane and the fuel, yeah. Right. So that's not including the instructor's time. That's not including ground training or anything. That is strictly just for the plane. And as soon as you start that bad boy up, your clock's running.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was expensive. And I got my private license, and it cost me a lot. I didn't like rush it or anything. So I flew maybe like once or twice a week. But it cost me a lot of money, and I was like, okay, I can't afford this. Like, how do I make this pilot dream happen where I'm not paying for it? And so one of the pilots who flies with my uncles at HOWNH, she was telling my uncles, like, oh, you should have her look into the Guard. Like, if she wants to fly, she can come apply here, and because she already has her degree, you have to be like an officer candidate already, so you have to have your college degree in order to be hired off of the street so that they can send you to officer training. So I had my degree. And so I was like, okay, well, I really enjoy flying. Like, let me go check out the Guard and see what this is about. Again, went down there to the squadron, met everybody in the tanker community because I knew my long-term goal was to fly airlines. So I was like, okay, well, fighter jets is not the same aircraft as an airline aircraft like the 135 is. So I knew I didn't want to fly fighters because I was thinking more long term.
Yeah, you need those flight benefits.
Yeah, exactly. I need those flight benefits, like I was saying. So I went to the 135 squadron, met the guys there, and then like instantly fell in love with the people. And I was like, these are my people. Yeah. Like, this is where I belong. They're just chill. We drink beers, like, and then we go flying, but we fly and then we drink beers.
Well, you're still here with us today, so obviously you had it in the right order.
Yeah. But and I met them, and I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. These are the people I want to work with for the next 10 years because it's a 10-year minimum commitment. Wow. And I was like, yeah, I could do this Guard thing. I was like, well, I got to go march around for a little bit, then I got to go pilot training. And they're going to pay for me to go to the pilot training and pay me on top of that, like, while I'm there? Yeah, I could do this. So I was lucky enough to get picked up the first time that I applied, which, again, it's kind of like Miss Hawaii. It's not everybody gets selected their first try. Right. Some people try and they never get selected, or they become an alternate. And so Devin and I were both fortunate enough to get selected in our first board. And yeah, so we got selected, and then again, what was the waiting game? So I kept doing what I was doing, just dancing hula, flying every once in a while, and then doing high sessions. And then we got the call to go to training, and I was like, all right, we're doing this. And yeah, then I disappeared for a couple years. And again, competitive me, I like go into the zone.
Yeah.
And this zone just happened to last 2 years because that's how long training was. So I'd kind of just go in the zone, and I like just fully commit myself to whatever, my task is at the moment. And at the moment it was pilot training. So I did that. And then now I'm back, and I'm like I'm a real pilot now. I'm like, sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, you did that? Yeah. Oh my God, you did that. Like, oh, so it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. If you look back at your life, like, you've gotten a lot of cool accomplishments that 99% of the population have no idea how to do that.
So I don't even know how I got so lucky. Like I really did. And just kind of like the stars aligned. And again, timing's everything, but it's like just hard work, dedication, and committing yourself to like, you know, your goals, no matter what they are, even if it's just, oh, I want to win this local title, or I want to be good at school and get a 4.0. I'm sure if I was like, yeah, I want a 4.0, I totally could have done that, but I didn't want that.
And you didn't need to.
I didn't want the 4.0. Yeah. I was like, B range, B plus, couple A minuses here and there. Yeah, we're good. That's good enough for me.
So are you done with your program? Like, what's the next step now? Like, do you have to go back up? Or
No, so I'm done with training. So I finished my initial pilot training, flew the T6 and the T1, and then I went to my 135 follow-on training, flew that, got fully certified, and now I am back, I am back in Hawaii, and I'm flying over at the hang, is what we call it, the Hawaii Air National Guard. So I'm at the hang now on full-time orders. But I do like in-house training, so I like learn how the squadron does things, and I fly with some of the instructor pilots that are there. And I think my first flight is not next week, but the following week. So like January 16th is my first official flight.
Ooh.
I know, I'm excited.
So, and I don't know if you're allowed to say, but do you know where you're going or what you're doing?
Oh, no, it's just local. So I'll just be flying around here, just doing training.
Oh, okay. So it's not that you're refueling jets yet.
No, we'll be doing. I don't know exactly what I'll be doing that day, but we'll be doing like either refueling training with other jets or maybe just going out by ourselves. I don't really know what we're doing yet.
So are you permanently stationed here then? Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that was the like money maker when I found out about the Guard. It's like, oh, I applied to the Hawaii Air National Guard and I stay in Hawaii. Like, they can't tell me that I need to go move or do anything.
Yeah.
Like, nope, you work for the Hawaii Air Guard. You're not going anywhere. I'm like,
oh, cool.
Yes, sign me up for this. So I have more control over my schedule and all that than your traditional, like, enlisted or active duty military members, where they serve, like, either, you know, like 4 years here and then they move them here. And so I'm not about that life. Like, I know I want to live in Hawaii and I don't want to go anywhere else. I mean, I want to go places, but I want to live.
Come back.
Yeah, I want to come back.
You want to be able to come back.
Yeah. I don't want to get, forced to live someplace I don't want to live.
That makes me happy because I just assumed that you were in that kind of career where you got to have to move and move. So that's cool that you're going to be here now.
Yeah, so I'm back so I can keep doing high sessions and dancing hula and like living my best life, or just living out my dream of being a hula dancer and doing my TV stuff and flying airplanes. Like,
that's so cool.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So you said that the original intent for the reason why you did Miss Hawaii, one of which was to get scholarship to go get your master's. Did you ever pursue getting a master's?
I did not.
Do you have any desire? Because obviously you're doing what you want to do now. Is there any reason for you to go in?
I'm not going to knock it, but right now I'm like, oh God, I can't even think about more school. But I think eventually I may get my master's. I don't know what in, but yeah, I didn't really take the route that I thought that I had planned going into Miss Hawaii. So I got my scholarship from Argosy University, and I had like 4 years to take advantage of it. And in those 4 years right after Miss Hawaii, I had so much going on. I had so many opportunities that to travel and dance hula and do all these things. And I had high sessions going that I wanted to kind of focus on those. And I think a lot of title holders, just coming off of a huge year, you're just kind of like springboarding into all of these opportunities. And it would be, I don't know, like it would just be foolish not to take advantage of those.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I was doing all of those things, and I was kind of riding the Miss Hawaii wave and everything. And then once I was kind of like, okay, well, I can't do this forever. What's my forever here? Like, this is fun, and I know it's going to come to an end. Like, I'm going to fizzle out and fade into the shadows. But, you know, like, what do I really want to do? And then that's kind of when I thought about, like, okay, well, you always wanted to fly, so let's give this flying thing a try and see how it goes. So, but again, like, the best thing that I got out of being Miss Hawaii was all of the networking and the awesome people I met. Like, I got to meet you through, like, my Miss Hawaii experience.
Yeah.
Like, I would have never gotten that commercial opportunity to you know, be in that Island Insurance commercial with you, or be on the radio with you and Devin if it weren't for Miss Hawaii. So there's just like so many connections that I made that I'm really, really thankful for.
Is that something that you can see yourself getting involved with, as far as, you know, being a part of the Miss Hawaii pageant in a more, I don't know, supportive role for future kind of thing? Like, I know there's several who are still really heavily involved with the program. Is that something that you want to see yourself doing in the future?
I think so. So I had been the associate director for the teen pageants the last few years. Again, after Miss Hawaii, they kind of needed somebody to handle the teen program. And it was actually myself and Crystal who became associates with, and Muriel Anderson, who was a long-time supporter of the Miss Hawaii organization. So she helped out with that, and then she kind of stepped into the executive director role of the teen program. So Crystal and I were helping with that for a few years right before I left for pilot training. So that was fun. I had never competed as a teen, so that was kind of new, you know, to see like how these teens are approaching it, and kind of what I could, or like the inspiration that I could give them, and kind of, I don't want to say like training techniques, but training techniques like you got to be committed, you got to be driven, and, you know, instilling those kind of things that I learned through sports, and taking it the pageant route, and then trying to instill it in these younger girls, so that eventually, hopefully, they have a good time competing in the teen, and then they want to continue on to Miss Hawaii. But I think now that I stepped away from the pageant scene for these last few years, and I'm kind of coming back, I think I'll be helping out in the Miss divisions probably a lot more. Do you like the
younger age groups, like the teens, or are you more like, let's go a little older?
I do like working with the teens because they're so raw, and you have a chance to mold, you know, like the younger generation. Again, it's like the whole teacher in me. Yeah. So I get to be a little bit of a teacher. Just a little bit. Not like all year round. Just during pageant
Short period
season.
Of time.
Short periods of time.
Send
and then, bye-bye. See you next time. But I liked it, but I think now, kind of like hindsight 2020, I feel like I have a lot of experience, just kind of life experience, even though it's not a lot, but a lot condensed into the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
That I could share with a future Miss Hawaii, and I think that, you know, that could be more beneficial to them. But again, wherever, we'll see what happens. I have no set plans to like step into any roles, but
you got quite a bit of other things to deal with right now.
I've got a lot of things going on, but I definitely can't say no to my Miss Hawaii family, because without them and all the people that poured their heart and soul into, you know, making me the person that I am today and bettering me, like I wouldn't be here without them. So I want to give back that same energy and those same lessons that I learned to the next Miss Hawaii, and hopefully, you know, I'm seeing like chief pilots coming up after me, chief Miss Hawaii pilots, and, you know, generals and all these kinds of things. So yeah, definitely giving back to the programs that gave to me, sports, Miss Hawaii.
So you mentioned that, you know, you're born into the famous Kamaka ukulele family. Did you ever want to pursue music, or was that something that was of interest to you growing up?
Well, my family are just, everybody's an entertainer. Like my grandfather, he's an entertainer, and his mother was a kumuhula. So like hula and music just kind of go hand in hand with my family. So it's kind of like the boys play the music and they sing and the girls dance. So that was kind of my way of promoting, I guess, Kamaka. Like my Uncle Chris. I did a lot of things with HOWNH because he's part of that group. And so they would perform and I would dance, and that's kind of the extent of that. But I'm definitely not a Jake Shimabukuro on the ukulele.
Did you?
I can like strum along and, chalank-a-lank with everybody, but yeah, my cousins, they're way better than me.
was there like pressure? Like, because it's like, oh, that's your family name. You got to at least be pretty good on.
People assume that, but I set them straight. I'm not embarrassed. Like, you could be like, oh my gosh, you're not like amazing at ukulele. I'd be like, nope. But, in like second or third grade when we had ukulele club, of course I had a Kamaka. I wasn't coming in with just any kind ukulele.
Kind of get the ABC store.
Yeah,
special.
I was playing surf on only the greatest ukulele.
Did you ever work or, be a part of the factory or whatnot? Like,
not hands-on, but I did help out with their social media accounts and kind of like bringing them into the 21st century, because obviously Kamaka has been around for 100 years. It was founded in 1916. So in 2016, when we celebrated our 100-year anniversary, again, it's run, my uncles run it, and they're not exactly tech savvy, you know what I mean? They're like older, so they're like, what is this Instagram? What is this Facebook? I was like, do you guys like want me to help out? So it kind of just started off like that, like, here, let me get the account going. And so that was kind of how I contributed, was let me help you kickstart this Facebook and Instagram, and kind of building a younger audience. Because obviously people have known Kamaka for generations, but the way that the world is going now, it's all technology and iPhones and whatnot. So if you can reach out and touch those next generations, even if it's through a post on Instagram, they might see a video or see a ukulele and be like, oh, what's this? So that was my way of helping out the family business. And obviously being Miss Hawaii, I did like a lot of promotions for Kamaka and traveling around the world, especially to Japan. When they see Kamaka or they hear my name, they're like, oh my gosh, Kamaka ukulele. So it was kind of just like a hand-in-hand kind of thing. I was like, promo Kamaka Hawaii and promo Miss Hawaii all in one.
What is it like? Because I know like Japan has this huge fascination with Hawaii and stuff. And I mean, we just look at Jake and it's like Michael Jackson over there, right?
Yeah. But not just Jake though. It's like all Hawaii musicians get treated like rock stars, even performers. I mean, the hula dancers, everybody, when you go to Japan, they treat you like you're rock stars. And it's like the most amazing feeling in the world. That's why everybody loves to go to Japan and perform. But yeah, they treat you like you're royalty and you're like God's gift to earth. And we're just like, I'm just dancing a couple hulas, guys. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, it's pretty wild.
Is it to the point though where you'd want to, like, not you personally, but performers would just, why wouldn't they just kind of like stay there and make that, if it's that the hunger for it and the admiration for it is so big, do they want to stay up there, or is it just not that?
I don't know. I mean, I think there are some musicians and some entertainers that do stay in Japan because the demand is so great, and but it's also that, like, you want what you can't have kind of thing. So, so it's like when the musicians come, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so great. And then they leave, right? They're like, oh no, come back, come back. So there's a little bit of that too. But yeah, you're definitely celebrated and praised a lot more in Japan than you are just in Hawaii, because everybody plays Hawaiian music and everybody, dances hula and whatnot. So it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, you go to Japan and they just love Hawaiian culture and they just go crazy for it.
Yeah, a friend of mine, he was like a third or fourth string quarterback for UH, but he's a local boy, and I guess he got invited to do some kind of like football tournament up there, and they just treated him like as if he's like Tom Brady, and he didn't even play. Really? But they're like, Hawaii? Because he looks over that, and he's like, oh, we got everything for free, and they took us around, and it's just like
awesome.
People taking pictures with me.
Yeah, especially was he tall?
Yeah.
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 They go
and
crazy.
good looking, like
perfect.
everything, right?
Yeah, good looking Hawaii boy who's tall. They're like, oh, sugoi. Take picture. Shashing, shashing.
Do you speak any Japanese?
I've picked up just like phrases and words, and I can kind of understand. Like when people are talking, just obviously when it's show related stuff, I can like, understand like what we're doing. But yeah, I'm not going to say that I'm fluent in Japanese at all or like can converse or anything like that, but I can like understand some phrases. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what they want me to do. Oh, like, oh, okay, go over here, go over there. Oh, okay, now my turn. All right, got it. So
before we wrap up, what is like the most? It doesn't have to necessarily be like the most like embarrassing thing, but like the most craziest thing that has happened to you as far as performance, whether it be when you're dancing hula or from Miss Hawaii or anything, any kind of like story where it's like, oh, this is one that I always remember. Oh, man.
Gosh, I've had some really cool experiences. I got to dance on a like floating stage in Korea. It was like in a pool. That was really awesome. But one performance that I will never forget was actually right after I won Miss Hawaii. I was dancing hula at Pearl City High School in their like theater. I can't remember what the event was, but it was like one of my very first performances. And I was standing backstage and I was about to walk out, and so I'm walking. They introduced me, right? And they're like, "Oh, newly crowned Miss Hawaii." I'm like, "Oh, I'm so excited! Yay, go me!" And I'm like walking out, and I was wearing a long dress, and I felt something like hit my foot, and I was like, what is that?" So I kick it, and it was a centipede, and the centipede had stung me as I was walking out onto the stage, and I had to like hold it together because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain right now. And I like kicked it like gracefully, like, get out of here. Super graceful. Nobody saw. And I'm like walking out, and I just start like my vision is going, and I'm like getting the sweats, and I'm like, oh my God, am I allergic to centipedes? This is the first time I've ever been bitten. And I'm like, my foot is throbbing, and my music is playing, and I'm about to dance, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna pass out on stage. This is my first time performing as Miss Hawaii, and I'm like, this is terrible. I made it through the song. It was probably, actually, I know it was definitely not my best performance, but yeah, it was one thing I'll never forget is my first performance. I get stung by a centipede, and I like almost pass out on stage, and it was horrible. But yeah.
So what happened? Like, was it that you were allergic to it, or did you have to...
I think I got off stage, and it was like a blue one. I don't know, like, so maybe I don't know all the different species of centipedes and like the poison consistencies or whatnot, but it like stung me, and so when I came back off, the people who were on the side of the stage, they saw the whole thing, and they were just like watching me, like, oh God, she's gonna lose it, she's gonna pass out, like something's gonna happen. So when I came off stage, like I sat down, and I was like, they're like, are you okay? Did it sting you? I was like, yeah. And they're like, do you need Benadryl? And I'm like, yes. So they brought me like some Benadryl, and I like took that, and probably it was like the best thing that could happen. But I don't think I was allergic. I think it was just all the adrenaline and getting stung and the pain, and I was about to pass out. Maybe I'm allergic. I don't know. That was the only time I've been stung. But yeah, that was my traumatic first introduction to Miss Hawaii.
Well, props to you, because, I mean, especially not knowing what your reaction to it would be, to still going out there and performing. I still went
out there, and I was like, this hurts.
That is a true professional.
And we're just going to smile through it, and if I pass out, at least I'm smiling. We're okay, but yeah.
That reminds me of this story. So the first musical theater show I ever did was at Army Community Theater. It was South Pacific, and one of the actors was this guy. His name was Serafin. He's this Filipino guy, and he had some kind of injury, and he took, I think, aspirin or Tylenol, but didn't realize that he was allergic to it. And this was at intermission.
Oh, God.
So the first scene out of intermission is this huge dance number that he does, and it's a solo. And you ever watch Hitch?
Yes.
Remember the scene where he gets allergic reaction to the shellfish, and his face starts blowing up? Like, legit, that's what happened to this guy. And it looked like someone punched him in the face, and his eyes were swollen up. He couldn't see, just had two little slits in his eyes. And he's doing this wonderful dance, like, big smile, but he can't move his cheeks, so it's like, and he performed the whole show like that.
Wow.
And we were just in shock. And we're like, shouldn't you go to the emergency
room? I hope you gave him
room?
the slow clap. As he was
No, I did the... Can you feel this? I'm poking his face.
Oh,
Can you feel that? And then later on, we're thinking like, you know, that probably was dangerous. Like he could have died. Maybe like we don't know what his reaction.
Oh my gosh.
And so you and Seraphin are up there on the echelon.
He is the real MVP though. Like my face was not swollen or hitched looking. It wasn't making pizza.
Who knows like how poisonous centipedes.
Yeah, and it was blue. I don't know. Like, it had like the blue shine on the top.
Blue scares me.
Right? That's what I'm saying. It wasn't just some regular like yard-looking centipede. It was huge.
Yeah, because in Mother Nature, if they have like really fancy-looking colors, it's usually like a warning, like don't mess with that thing. Because
I probably should have Googled it, but I didn't. I was like, oh well, I'm bit. There's nothing I can do now. So if I die, I die.
Did your foot swell up or anything?
God, I don't think so, but I had like these 2 little punctures. It was like right here on the side. And those little punctures didn't go. I had them for 6 months.
Whoa.
Like half of the time that I was missing away, I had punctures in the side of my foot from the centipede. Like you will never forget. Like it was crazy.
And you never went to go get it checked or anything?
No. I mean, it was sore, but I was like, it'll go away. I was like, I got things to do. I ain't got time for this centipede. Like, we're making moves here.
Man, you are hardcore.
I try.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for centipede steaks.
Dang. Well, I'm glad you're okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm stoked that you're here. I didn't realize you're going to be here for good.
So I'm home for good. I am so excited to start flying. That was obviously my childhood dream, and it's like crazy that I'm living it now and I'm doing it and that I'm fully qualified. Like people trust me to fly these planes. Sometimes I have to like double take because, I put on the front like, yeah, I got this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do I really got this? I have this, right? Like I'm qualified. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. And then I get in the plane and it's kind of like this outer body experience where I just like get in there and start doing the stuff. And really what I love most about flying is like seeing Hawaii specifically from this, sky, like bird's eye view perspective. And it's just so beautiful. And that's really what hooked me into flying. I was like, wow, I want to see this for the rest of my life. Like you see Oahu, concrete jungle, right?
Yeah.
And then you see it from the sky and you're like, is this even the same place? Like it doesn't even look the same. It's so pretty. Like it's just beautiful. And so, yeah, I'm stoked.
You ever see anything cool from up there as far as like, so every time I fly in and I'm looking over the ocean or the mountains, I'm always like trying to see if I see something crazy like a giant whale or billy
Loch
goat or
Ness
something like
monsters,
that. Yeah. Have you ever seen anything cool like that?
I've seen some whales like breaching and like doing
cool.
that. And that was when I was like kind of flying between Molokai. I was flying by Molokai and Maui and stuff, and it was humpback season, and we were flying a little bit lower so we could kind of check it out, see what's going on. And I saw some whales, and I'm like, this is the best day ever. But yeah, flying by Kalaupapa and seeing like the sea cliffs, and you're like below the cliffs, and you realize like how crazy high these cliffs are, and you're just like, it's just mind blowing how beautiful Hawaii is. So.
And in the cockpit, there's like, the only thing that I've seen is like from the movies, but it's like thousands of buttons and switches.
Accurate.
Do you know what every single button does? Really? Yeah. How do you remember all that stuff?
It took me 2 years to learn all these things. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. A lot of them are just mostly circuit breakers, or some of them are circuit breakers. I shouldn't say most of them. But there's like a bunch of circuit breakers. Like I can't tell you exactly where all the circuit breakers are, but it's like panels and panels of them. And then, but yeah, the cockpit, all of the buttons and everything in front of you and above you. Yeah, you got to know like what they do. And some of the knobs have like, grooves on them so that when you grab them in the dark, like, oh yeah, that's this switch, or this is that switch because it has the twisty knob on it. And I mean, engineers, man, smart kids who got 4.0s. They created the cockpit, and I just fly at 3.5. Thank you very much.
So do you have to check every single knob before you take off? Like, because I can imagine if you look past something, that could be really dangerous, right?
Yeah. So you have like a checklist, and you have to make sure you go through it. I mean, they drill it into you too, like checklist discipline. Make sure you're doing your checklist, because if you don't, you could die. You're like, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do my checklist discipline. And you just make sure that all the switches are in the right place. And then it's mostly just making sure everything is working properly, like the gauges are where they're supposed to be, like fuel and the temperatures aren't going crazy, because if temperatures are going crazy, it could lead, to fires or other things, and just all kinds of stuff. Like, it's crazy the things that I have learned. Like, I was never interested in, like, mechanics and, like, electrics and being an engineer. That was never my thing, and now I feel like that's all I know about. It's just like how systems work and how the fuel goes from here to here, and hydraulics moves these things. And I'm like, I'm such a nerd. But yeah, it's so much fun.
But you're like the coolest of the nerds.
I would like to think that, but I don't know.
I'll give you that.
These Air Force pilots, man, we're a bunch of nerds. That was one thing when I got to pilot training. I'm like, oh, yeah. We're kind of cool, but we're really nerdy. Like, everybody is like geeking out, like, oh my gosh, did you see that barrel roll? Like, oh, did you see me draw that system on the expo board? Like, it was so nice. I'm like, calm down, guys. It's not that serious. It's like, I drew the electrical system and it was crazy.
It was lit.
It was lit. Yeah. Get it?
Well, nerd and geekdom is like at an all-time like cool level now. So
I'm glad. I'm
you're
with
okay.
the trend then.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You're just riding the wave.
I'm
what's
riding the
popular
wave.
now.
Yeah. Before was jock, so I did the jock thing.
Yeah.
So
you're just
I like
a very
to say I'm ahead of the curve. Maybe, I don't know.
So whenever you start doing something new, let me know so I can jump in on it, because
Okay,
I'm always like
good.
a step behind.
Sounds good.
And I need to get my relevancy level back up.
I don't know. You've got all the cool stuff in here. This is like heaven with all your little pop creatures going on. You've got Groot over there, and you've got everybody.
Well, I'm
all
glad
the Marvel characters.
I'm glad you appreciate it and don't judge me harshly for it. Because I can totally see people be like, what is wrong with you?
I love it. Again, nerds. Nerds unite.
Well, from one fellow nerd to another, congratulations on everything.
You.
Super exciting. And thanks for hanging out.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
Get to hang with the dog, too. Just chilling. But
I can't wait to see what's next for you. And we'll see you on High Sessions, of course.
Yes, I'll be on High Sessions. Probably be watching some reruns of me right now, but I'll be back.
Awesome.
I can't give you an exact date, but I'll be back.
Well, we'll just be on the lookout. We'll be ready.
Be on the lookout. Be ready.
Stay ready. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Nolan.
All right, our thanks to Skyler for hanging out with us on this week's episode of the podcast. One of the most insanely interesting lives I've ever heard of. I mean, my goodness, to go from a volleyball player to Miss Hawaii to flying in the friendly skies and protecting our islands. Unbelievable. So obviously a huge inspiration, a lot of exciting things going on for her, and I can't wait to see her back on the airwaves on High Sessions and up in the air, literally flying over the island. So thanks again, Skyler. And thank you for joining us on another episode this week. We're really, 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 really appreciative of your support and hope that you continue to enjoy all of our episodes as we hang out with some of the most interesting and inspiring and entertaining people here on this island of Oahu. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next week on another episode of Hanging Out with Nolan Hong.